Welcome to CRE Fast 5 and tonight's edition of our interview series. I am very pleased to be joined by Doug Jerum, who is the Executive Vice President at Sabre Real Estate Advisors. Welcome, Doug. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Look forward to talking.
So Doug is really a thought leader in real estate in general. If you follow him on LinkedIn, you will see a lot of his engaging content. And Doug and I not only have worked together from an investment sales perspective, but we've also swapped a lot of just kind of brainstorming and interesting ideas about the industry. So tonight, we'll of course start off, Doug, by letting you tell us a little bit about your role at Sabre and what Sabre specializes in. And then I want to kind of jump into some creative uses for retail and some of the things that we're seeing concrete happening already in this broad-based retail evolution. So why don't you start by giving us a quick background on you and Sabre?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So I've joined Sabre recently, just about the last 6 weeks. I've been in retail real estate for over 25 years. I started very young. And joined Sabre to lead the national advisory practice. That practice is providing a full suite of outsourced real estate services to retailers. So think an asset light retailer. We work with a lot of emerging brands and startups. They don't want to have to hire in and bring in a lot of capital intensive headcount, and with everything in the world that is going on now and even previously, it gives them much more flexibility. They leave it to us to scale along with their expansion plans, and that suits us just fine. So we'll take them all the way from strategic planning through onboarding them into our systems, then rolling out a national rollout across the country, and then even after that's done, we'll do their portfolio management for them. So got some fun and exciting clients in our stable. Folks have got like Solid Core and some different fitness and wellness clients. Easiest thing is just check out on website at sabre.life, brand new website, so lots to look at there, and you can also see a lot of video content that's available. The CEO, Jason Ciano, has been at it for a number of years, so there's a rabbit hole you can go down if you want to.
Sounds to me like you are exactly what the industry needs for small and medium-sized business and tenants that want to expand. And we don't have enough of them from the investment perspective. So I am happy you're out there. Keep doing the good work. Support those new tenants so we don't have vacancy. And we can, from my perspective, get these deals rolling and at their peak potential. So very interesting.
Create some product to sell.
Exactly. Create value. That's what I like.
Yeah, for sure.
So in the line of creating value, obviously you touched on some of the tenants that you're working with that are expanding, which I'm sure is fascinating to everybody, and we can jump into that more. But there's one particular niche that I want to start with because I think it's sort of new, really, with the increased focus, and I think increase is an understatement, on e-commerce. We seem to have a tremendous lack of industrial inventory related to last mile distribution. So we've swapped some interesting ideas on distribution. Why don't you give me your thoughts on how that relates to retail and what trends you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll hear over and over again that not a lot that's changing is actually new. In the last 6 months, it's all of these trends that were moving slowly that just got sort of violently accelerated, when March came. And one of those is around the fulfillment space. And it's one that I've found really interesting because it's easy, right? It's easy to see. It's not sort of more out on the horizon or super esoteric. It's like right there. And it's absolutely going to be a part of almost every retailer's plans, going forward. It just kind of has to be, and that's the idea of sort of nano fulfillment or micro fulfillment. And what that means is that ship from store would be another way it's referred to, but the idea of using your retail space as a place to fulfill orders. And that really came into the forefront over the last 6 months when all of a sudden everybody became essentially an e-commerce retailer, whether they wanted to be or not. And it was really the only way that they could sell. So you had all of these different brands that started to have to really scale up this infrastructure, and the only place they could do it was within the store. In some cases it became the only thing that the stores were doing. They couldn't open, and so they were fulfilling orders that had all of a sudden skyrocketed.
I love the term nano fulfillment. We've heard last mile distribution ad nauseum for years now, and especially in the last 6 months. And
Yeah.
micro distribution is not, a new concept, but nano distribution. If we can find a way to use 2,000 square feet up that, really is difficult to lease in a center, and at the same time support some of these small to mid-sized businesses who are struggling with their distribution pipeline, or maybe outsource that to the third party for these smaller retailers, I think that's really interesting. It's no surprise Amazon and a lot of these big giants are gobbling up space everywhere, but I haven't heard it talked about on the small nano scale yet. So I love that term, and I think that's a really interesting concept that you brought up.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to it, and there's people out there, that are much more educated on it than I am. It's something that I'm being a student of because I think it's such an obvious place where we need to go, and so I'm continuing to learn more about it. And yeah, there's the nano fulfillment. One of the things about nano fulfillment is it's, at least at this point, sort of doing it yourself is not for everybody. Your mom and pop retailer isn't going to be doing it. I mean, you could call, filling orders in the back nano fulfillment, but it's not really what this means. This really is more a literal nano fulfillment center. So think, you contract with a provider of a nano fulfillment system that is built into your space. So this is like the real deal kind of, equipment, robots, the whole thing. So it's obviously not inexpensive. So it's going to be for the multi-unit players, those that have the balance sheet to support it and that can take advantage of what it does. You have to have the order flow, and you have to have the scale around the rest of the components and the rest of your supply chain to make it work. But for those larger multi-unit operators, I think it's very interesting, and like anything else, as the technology gets better and it gets more competitive and cheaper, then more people can do it. But it's certainly not yet a solution for everybody as far as everything that I've seen.
And I also agree with your point that this is probably not going to be the first choice. You're not going to say, I'd love to convert my entire retail center to, various micro fulfillment centers, tenants.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be an ancillary part of the center that is meant to increase your NOI and kind of soak up any vacancy, but probably not going to be your first choice from a rent perspective.
Totally. I mean, it's an opportunistic thing, or it's part of a leasing strategy. It as a way to bring in certain tenants. So if particularly, so if we get past sort of the four wall nano fulfillment and get into the idea of being able to step in and lease capacity within somebody else's facility, that I think gets a lot more interesting for a lot more people. There, it's a shared investment now, and it's just you're buying time, or buying capacity, and that to me definitely has more sort of immediate potential for people that that need that service but can't do the capital investment. Some of the big players are the grocery stores in the micro fulfillment space, and so all of the grocery delivery is intimately locked in with this idea. So all the grocery stores all of a sudden, had to become these fulfillment centers. And I think Whole Foods had actually used closed grocery stores to do fulfillment for Instacart. And so, then from that, there was a lot of talk and shine more light on what a lot of the grocery folks are looking at or working with, which is putting micro fulfillment centers within a grocery store so that they can better pick the orders for the online delivery because it's pretty inefficient right now. So they're all figuring that out, and that's going to be more and more of a thing of seeing that because it's necessary to, if they want to continue to drive the growth of the online grocery shopping.
Sticking with grocery for a minute, I think from my own personal experience that Whole Foods actually still has shoppers that go in to the physical
Hmm.
store. There's no sort of fulfillment, right? Pick the order, because I get on my app, the person's
Yeah,
name and where they are and this. And
right.
I think every time I kind of feel bad that someone is going to get, I mean, I'm happy about it because I don't have to go, but there should be a technological solution for this, right? In the back where the robot just puts
Yeah.
it all and it appears
Yep.
via self-driving car. Like I really feel like
Yeah.
we should be there soon.
It's
For
it's
those,
there, it's just not widespread, right? So like the
right.
technology exists, it's just it has to be deployed and surprise, everybody was not expecting a pandemic that made everybody want to buy groceries online. So everybody did what they could and worked with what they had. But yeah, that's and it also has to be accommodated within the stores. So that's a longer horizon thing to
Hmm.
be able to either reconfigure the stores or when you're building new stores or remodeling and configuring it, but it's mandatory, I think, in order for online groceries to continue. Because when you go in the store, when I go into Wegmans, half the shoppers are working for Instacart, right?
Right.
And so like
Right.
the stores there's like fills up the store, along with the people who are doing their own, and it's not ideal to be having to sort of have both those things going on, at the same time, and it's just not efficient. They need to move faster because also we're not going to tolerate the cost indefinitely. Right.
Exactly. I think so much of the success of retailers, grocery or otherwise, is really going to be the parts we don't see as a consumer. It's going to come down to overwhelmingly efficiency in the back end,
Yeah,
how their fulfillment
totally.
looks, their distribution, their efficiency of getting the products right and what consumers want, and then getting them to the consumers. So branding and marketing is important, and the shopping experience is important somewhat still,
Mhm.
but that the unseen part of retail is, I think, what's going to make or break different brands,
Yeah,
to your
totally. I
point.
mean, there's if you're not in a pandemic and you're not in a really difficult market, so like a Metro New York is different, but in most of the markets around the country, when you look at how much it costs to get your groceries from Instacart, you got to really not want to go grocery shopping. Like it's
Hmm.
expensive, and of course, they don't. There's still issues with like picking produce and things like that. That's just never quite as good.
Right,
So
right.
when you put those two things together, there's a much smaller base of people who really want to do that on a regular basis. If you brought the price down significantly, or even yeah, moderately, that'll expand the audience. It's just that time value of money and, what am I willing to pay for versus what I can do. And, they're not there yet to make it a thing that sort of everybody wants to do. I think you could get to where most people would rather not go grocery shopping, or at least a
Hmm.
majority. But it's got to cost less.
I wonder if there'll be an inflection point where you actually pay more to shop in the store because it's less efficient for the retailer. We're very far from that, but
That's a
right?
great
Is that
question,
interesting?
actually. So that I hadn't thought about it that way, but I actually just read something today around what to watch for now that Walmart has partnered with Instacart.
Hmm.
Uh, and the gentleman that wrote the article was speculating that you will see over time that Walmart drives down that differential between in-store and delivery. And when that happens, that's going to upend everybody else.
Hmm.
Because why would you, unless it's a quality. So if you're comparing Wegmans and Walmart for your groceries, maybe you're not changing over price. But if you're comparing, your average, uninspiring middle market grocer versus Walmart, and Walmart is at price parity plus a delivery fee, with going into the store, what are you going to do? Now I'm
Yeah,
pretty serious about like, okay, $10 delivery fee and my groceries cost the same as if I go get them. Let's go.
right, right. It's going
Yeah,
to be interesting.
yeah,
I want to switch gears here because there was another topic entirely that you and I have talked about recently that I think
yeah,
the viewers would really find insightful and interesting, and it's not being talked about that much. And that is the wild realm of esports.
yeah.
So this is not my world. I don't know the tenants very well. I
You have
obviously
two
don't
kids,
do
so it will
leasing.
be.
Yeah, my two girls are a little, and yeah, they don't play in that world. We're
Not
trying to
yet.
avoid it, so shh, doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
yeah,
But in all seriousness, this is a big deal, and the tenants that are out there, from what I'm hearing, and I want your complete overview and insight into it. But from my uneducated perspective on this, they're taking a lot of square footage, and the build outs include food options, and some of them are really quite nice. I mean, it's a
mhm,
full sports experience.
yeah.
Talk me through where that is, what the tenants look like, and what you think is coming next.
Yeah, so and it's esports and then the larger wrapper around that is really gaming. And yeah, it's something I've talked about for a long time. It's something that I'm involved with and pretty passionate about because I believe it's an area that's it's a fun thing to do. And although it's been much more recent, it's been talked about, um, the number of people that to one degree or another play games is massive. It's actually 40% of the world's population plays video games of some kind or another, including on mobile devices and all that. But if you play Candy Crush or any of those things, you play games. But yeah, about 2.8 billion people uh, across the world play. The revenue of the gaming industry is $160 billion a year, and it's growing at about 9.3% last year on a year-over-year basis. Uh, to calibrate that, the movie theater business was about 60 billion last year. The music business was about 45 billion. If you include all music, music publishing, touring, and everything, all revenue generated around film, and combine those two, that's about the same as the revenue of the gaming industry, except the
Hmm.
gaming industry is growing at 10% a year. So in 4 years, it's going to be around 200 billion and far past those. So just to calibrate sort of how big it is, that's I think that helps people kind of get their arms around it. And beyond movie theaters or in the past it's fading away, but buying, going to GameStop, I think there's really no presence at retail of gaming or esports or any of it. So it's always been to me just a matter of time before that starts to show up more in retail. And so to me, it's an opportunity. Um, it's not all about just playing by yourself or online. There's a lot of different ways it can manifest itself. People are still social, and so opportunities to to come out of your house and meet your friends and play together in a place where you can interact IRL is something that see a lot more of. That's along the lines of what you were talking about. You're really talking about arenas that are more competitive spaces designed for around a lot of events and competitions akin to sports arenas. Those are definitely a thing. There's a handful of very nice facilities that have been built and more that are under construction around the country. But look for more more things coming that are kind of at a local level and much more community oriented, so places that are very close by that are as a replacement for hanging out at the mall, as a
Hmm.
place to go and play with your friends. um,
So
the
I
Yeah.
need a visual on this. Not a video game player myself. So
Mhm.
you would leave your house, go to a place in your local strip mall where there would be screens and consoles, and you would do what you would do in your house, but somewhere else with friends or other competitively, maybe with other people in
Yep.
the community. How does the actual
Yeah,
flow of
so
this space work?
that's pretty much it. So, if you think about, it's the analogy I made the other day is, if you play in a softball league, you go down to the local park where there's a diamond, get together with two teams, and you play. And then maybe
Okay.
you go, have a drink somewhere afterwards. This would be, going someplace, a number of teams get together on a weekly basis, competing against each other and socializing, and then maybe go next door and, have pizza or have drinks or whatever. And an important thing to note is what we'll call the sort of the gaming myth. The gaming industry is not made up of kids in their parents' basement. The demographic is actually it's the still more male than female, but much more female than most people understand. It's about a third female, particularly in the younger generations, and the primary, so male 18 to 34 is the primary demographic, and particularly males 20 to 30s. They tend to be well educated, high income earners, usually married, children, not the typical demographic that you would expect.
Hmm.
But if you think it through, it actually starts to make sense. People aren't 16 forever, and if you grow up, people have been growing up playing games now for 30 or 40 years. It makes sense that that pool of people that are actual mature adults that still like to play gets larger and larger all the time. And that's, I think, a big thing that just people never think about. They sort of imagine it that, I'm no longer in college, so I just stopped doing it. And that's not the case.
Walk me through the tenants in this space. Do we have any national brands yet? Do we have any
We
companies that
don't.
have been able to scale? Not yet, right?
No, there's some that are
Interesting.
trying, there's some that are coming, and I think that so I guess two things. One, so the esports part of it, which is a subset, if you think of it, sort of the competitive games or the competitive opportunities around gaming, and that parallels all the opportunities of traditional sports. Um, the opportunity to spectate and to root for your favorite players or favorite teams and personalities, and there are fantasy leagues around esports just like there are around traditional sports. The bigger games pull in 10, 20, 30,000 or more people to a live event when we get back to having those. An event a lot of people may be familiar with was back last year, the Fortnite World Cup held at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York, completely sold out, 40,000 plus people. Um, yeah, like
That's amazing. I had no idea that existed, by the way. So thank you
so
for pulling me into 2020.
I mean, it's even more, yeah. So, and that's what goes on in the US is nothing compared to what goes on in China, where the bird's nest from the Olympics, if you remember that stadium.
Okay.
So the League of Legends is probably I think arguably the largest competitive esport out there. It's a game published by a company called Riot Games out of Los Angeles, and they hold something called Worlds, which is their playoffs and Super Bowl every October. In fact, it's coming up. It's starting in another couple of weeks, and so the final round, which has been in China the last couple of years, was held at the Bird's Nest, so completely sold out. So over 100,000 people live watching this event, uh,
Amazing.
and hundreds of millions of people around the world were watching. Um, so it's a big deal.
From a local level, you had mentioned obviously that's the tremendous scale when you've made it, right? I guess in
Hmm.
esports, those are the type of events you compete at. But
Hmm.
on the more social local level, what kind of square footage do you think we would see a site like this take up in a
Yeah.
local regional shopping center? How do we make this real from an investment perspective?
Yeah, so it's like 2, 3, 4, 5,000 square feet, just depending on the number of people you want to accommodate. You can kind of work backwards. You sort of like think about how much space you need for person and and the equipment, and then replicate that. Um, I think that getting beyond that, it's people to start thinking about retail merchandise opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
and so. you have Nike and Under Armour and all these brands have stores, right, where they're displaying branded merchandise and their partnerships with athletes. You know, that's got to be coming, right? So, the in esports world, you have what they call orgs or organizations that are all branded. They all have very strong identities. They all have their own branded merchandise. And an esports organization will span multiple games, so they'll have teams in 10 different games. So they have an enormous amount of players, and different games are associated with. So the merchandising opportunities and the opportunities for retail stores, I think, are tremendous. It's not being done. Nobody's really
Mm-hmm.
doing it yet. There's a couple of examples, things out there, but yeah, again, it's I think very clearly an opportunity that'll be taking up retail space, and will drive a lot of business because it's unique and it's exciting, and at least at this point it's not ubiquitous. So I think there's a lot of opportunities around retail. I think there's also opportunities around spectating, meaning watching. It's a lot. So the number of people that watch esports and watch people playing games is much larger than the people that watch are much larger than people that compete, not that play. But the audience of people that just like to watch is huge, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You don't play football, but you may watch it. You
Mm-hmm.
watch the NFL, right? So it's exactly the same thing. So the food and beverage and social opportunities for watching have not materialized yet. There are there are some places that are dabbling around. Even Buffalo Wild Wings is been dipping its toe in it, but that's still not purpose designed around streaming and esports. And so I think there's an opportunity for one or more players to step into that space and have really authentic purpose built facilities for enjoying streaming and esports and gaming and things like that. So that's another avenue that I see coming in retail as well. So I think all of those things will manifest over time.
I think we need to replay this conversation between the two of us in a year and then in
Yeah,
3 years, and we're going to go, oh, this is so second nature now, right? They're everywhere. It's
totally.
just, it's just another tenant that we talk about and underwrite. So
Yeah, I
it's
think we'll
coming. You're
see.
right.
Yeah, in the next
Hmm.
5 years, we'll be able to have probably still not be a huge list, but we'll have a list of national brands in I think each of those three spaces. The playing, the watching, and then the retail merchandise. I think all those categories will have some players in them.
Very interesting. I love it. We'll definitely keep in touch as that evolves,
So we
really.
did bring
So
that around to retail.
we did. Yes, exactly. I'm always, how can we backfill vacant space? How can we
That's
underwrite it?
right.
What does that mean for the NOI?
That's
Let's
right.
make it,
Exactly.
let's make some money
Exactly.
here. What do we need to do? Too
Totally.
funny. Exactly. So we just have a few minutes left. So I'm going to throw
Yeah.
you a curveball because that's always fun.
Sure.
So tell me two things. One, what are you most positive in terms of retail on when you look at the end of 2020 and into 2021? There's been so many negative headlines, and we just touched on some neat evolutions, but what do you think is just a really interesting trend that we haven't touched on that gets you excited about retail for the next 6 months to a year onward?
The next 6 months to a year, that I
Okay, maybe a
think.
little longer. We'll give
Yeah,
you a
I
little more
mean,
time.
I think the positive thing is, I mean, my answer is somewhat generic in that you know every every situation, to one degree or another, that has all these negatives that we're dealing with. There's always positives on the other side, and they don't always balance out the negatives. But I think that the big opportunity is for reinvention, and for clearing some space for some new, literally and figuratively, for some new things. If you were on the sidelines, when March came and have been able to preserve your capital, it's a tremendous time to be moving forward with an idea that you had, or a retail concept that you wanted to move forward. The space will be there, the rents will be better, and depending on what industry you're going into, there'll be less competition. I mean, that does mean negative and unfortunate things for somebody else. Uh, but that's where opportunity often comes from. So I think we'll see some interesting new concepts get a chance. I think we will get to continue to move towards some better differentiation in the concepts we have out there, less ubiquity,
Hmm.
more interesting stuff, which is what we need for retail to be relevant. We need to work our way through the gap mall years of our existence and get to the more funky original new world.
Can't wait for that. I
Yeah.
love progress and new ideas. So it's a great way to look at it. Very good answer.
Yeah.
Last one, what have you personally done during COVID differently? How has it kind of changed your view on work, life? And you can take that any way you want. And how would you kind of parlay that into advice for anyone, real estate or otherwise, who maybe is feeling stuck and looking back at 2019 and wishing things were the same?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's funny, my experience over the last 6 months has been a lot like retail's experience, which is there's not much that wasn't already sort of happening. It just happened a lot faster. So obviously one of the things is I moved to a new company, right, in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
COVID, and as a result of, in some ways, not in some, partially as a result of the first few months or 6 weeks or so of COVID, had a lot of time to sort of think about, sort of figure out what was going on, think about what it might look like, and how what do I need to thrive as we come out of on the other side. And I decided that I needed a different platform from which to practice from. So I'm fundamentally doing the same thing, but in a lot of ways it's completely different because of the group that I'm with, and this the strengths that they bring to the table, that match really well with what I bring. Um, probably the so Probably the best thing, though, that not the best thing, the thing that came out of it, that has come out of this, though, that is changed, not so much changed me, but changed what I've been able to do, is that uh, all of the things that I've always liked to do, sort of what we're doing now. Why can't we do just a video? Why do I have to, go here? Why can't we meet face to face this way? Why can't we do things electronically? You know, why do I have to be in a particular place? These things that I would sort of would have liked to have had happen now have happened, right? So I now work 100% from home. uh am getting deals done without going there, although that's not, I don't believe, a complete change. I think that some things do need to be seen, but just having clients that are more comfortable with the idea of virtual tours, and seeing things through video and meeting this way instead of face to face, all of those things that sort of made sense, but just couldn't get a critical mass of people to do them to make them acceptable, has happened. And so it's a big change in that I'm able to sort of do them now, along with everybody else, and not be pushing the giant rock uphill.
So this has worked out great then for you. We
It,
just took the rest of us a
yeah.
while to catch up, is what it
Uh,
was.
yeah, I mean, in some ways, yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, it's the world has moved to a place that I'm very comfortable with, and that I'm
Love
really
it.
pretty happy about. But I think it's good for everybody. Like,
Hmm.
one thing that I love seeing is how so many people who are getting to take advantage of not of wasting so much less time commuting, and
Hmm.
just taking that time and putting it to better use. Um, yeah, I'm 100% believer that the I think the biggest change for our country and probably globally is we just restructured sort of work and life. Like, that's not going to change. Do I believe everyone's working from home 100%? No, that's not real. That's not good either. but I think the hybrid model will become the dominant model going forward. I think that it will be rare if you have a job that can be done remotely. I think it will be rare for you to spend 5 days a week in an office ever.
Mm-hmm. And
I
I think you're right. This probably wouldn't have changed. It took something this extreme to really
totally,
change our way of life substantially.
yeah,
I think you're right.
and it's like in a positive way. And I think people
Right.
are able to get a lot more out of their time and have overall be healthier for it. So I love that, and I think forget outside of retail, like just sort of as global human beings, like I really like that. I think that's really cool.
So am I ever going to see you at ICSC again, or is that's out? Not leaving your
That
house.
in all seriousness, gonna leave my house and you'll see me again. Might not be at an ICSC. I don't know. We'll see. I'm,
Interesting.
I'm not, not convinced it's necessary.
TBD.
Yeah,
TBD. Okay, fair enough.
yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Love all the ideas we covered. Thank you so much for your insights. It's always a pleasure swapping new ideas and hearing your creative thoughts. So, very much appreciate all of your time today, Doug.
You're welcome. My pleasure, and happy to do it again anytime.
Sounds great. To everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in. That was CRE Fast Five interview series with Doug Jerum, Executive Vice President at Sabre Real Estate Advisors. We look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care.